but we're speaking about commodities. Copper is the other one in focus. Let's pull up a Hindustan Copper. Let's also pull up a Hindalco. The LME prices have hit a high following Donald Trump's 50% tariff announcement. That may be a boon for domestic copper players, but a bane to copper consuming industries like cables. Despite that, you're seeing a bit of pressure across the board where both sides of the value chain are concerned. Listen in, we spoke to KEI Industries earlier today about this. Listen in to a slice of that.
So far as our business is concerned, but whenever the copper prices are rising, we are immediately passing it on to the user. And if it is dropping, we are also reducing our selling prices of our cables. So I think so far as we are concerned, it will have no impact. But any significant rise in copper price may impact the demand temporarily, because ultimately the user industry normally does wait and watch policy for some time if the prices goes up significantly.
Okay, all right. So that's of course with regard to KEI. We also in fact had a statement coming in from RR Kabil. We have Sri Gopal Kabra, and he's the managing director at RR Kabil, who suggested that there's no formal notification beyond the initial statement. Implementation and timeline remain unclear. Tariff on copper appears to be primarily focused on raw and refined forms. Clarity is still emerging with regard to whether value-added copper products like cables, transformers, wires, tubes, copper alloys will be included. Cathodes from countries like Japan will continue to find its way to the US warehouses in the near term as a result. And therefore, all of that stockpiling that's happening in the US will likely continue to happen till there is a definitive date from when this tariff will be applicable. Until that point, you might continue to see price pressure. That's what Rakesh Arora told us this morning with regard to where copper is concerned. But thereafter, you might well see pricing come off, which might trigger some bit of pessimism in some of these companies.
At least that's what that general focus seems to be, right? And you had done some work on this as well. But Rakesh's view was that this is a short-term impact either side, which will normalize in a period of 1-2 months once the tariffs actually come into place.
Yeah, and in fact, what we're going to try to do is pull out that piece by Rakesh Arora. Here are his views. Listen in.
The street was expecting around 25% tariff on copper import by US. So 50% has come as a surprise. That's why you see a 10% jump in copper prices. If I look at overall copper consumption in 2025, China has been building solar power like there's no tomorrow. And just to give you some numbers, in the first 5 months, China has added 105 gigawatt. Now that is equal to India's total solar capacity. So that gives you, a lot of color. US added around 10 odd gigawatt in the first quarter. And this was down like 7%. China was up 150%. So what is happening is that, we have strong demand growth coming in China for copper, which is growing at around 13%. And because of the tariff, the inventory is all moving towards US. So rest of the world is left with much lower inventory. When you club the inventory of US and the rest of the world, it is probably higher than what it was in 2024. But since everything is rushing to US, the rest of the world is seeing much lower inventory, and that's why the prices are moving up. This phenomena will last for some time because US demand is not there enough to support that kind of inflow. So you will see bump up in copper prices in the near term. We're already seeing that. And probably, in 1 or 2 quarters, as things settle down, copper will start to come back to below $10,000 level.
Okay, well, Kush, so if I try to piece this together, fundamentally, we've gotten a couple of views. Technically, what do the charts say for a Hind Copper, for a KEI Industries or a Polycab? Any thoughts?
Sure. So Neeraj, Hind Copper was, our call about 10-15 odd sessions ago had done well. And, metal names are no stranger to volatility, especially, on account of global news flow. And this is also something very similar playing out. So for me, Hind Copper remains a buy on declines. It's just that it's taken the support at the 255, 260 zone, which is a rising trend line support for Hind Copper. Give it a day. If it holds about if it holds around these levels, then I will actually look for a buying opportunity in something like a Hind Copper. Anyway, the 200-day moving average support at 255, a strong one, and that comes in. So yes, I remain constructive on Hind Copper. In fact, even Hindalco for that matter. But I prefer Hind Copper over Hindalco. Among the wire names, most of them don't have a very encouraging setup. I was looking at Finolex, KEIRR, Kabil. They've anyway been consolidating for the last 8-10 odd sessions without really going anywhere, perhaps with a mild negative bias. The only one that stands out in this space is Polycab. Had a good run, few days of consolidation. Today also, if you see, despite the kind of news and the kind of dip that the stock is witnessing, it's still holding up above yesterday's low price. So for me, Polycab is a buy. 6,900, 7,100 on the upside, remain the key levels to watch for, and 6,500 as a stop. So Polycab in the wire space and Hind Copper in the metal space still look good. Hind Copper, I'd give it a day or two more just to see if it settles around these levels.
That's the take coming in with regard to some of those commodity names. But let's take